Well, my name's Daniel Garza. This is my story. I haven't changed this. I need to change that. But I'm an outreach ambassador, and Beth and I met when she was looking for Shanti, and I would do a lot of work with them. Now she's moved you over here. I do more stuff here at UCI. I know my way around the college town because it's a big college. It's scary. It's scary. You college people are scary. I was giggling earlier about, before I get into my story, it was funny because she's like, nobody talks about gonorrhea because like on your profile, like dating, like yeah, I like walks in the park, I like ice cream, and I have gonorrhea, and I have tuna poles, but anyway, this is my story. Just to kind of put in perspective, I'm Mexican, if you didn't figure it out. It's not a tan. I'm also gay. All my life, came out of the package, came out gay, came out Mexican. That was from the start. My family is Catholic. We were raised Catholic. I'm originally from Monterrey, Mexico. I'm a Mexican. But we were raised in Texas. But real conservative. Anybody in here? If you know Catholic Mexican families, we don't talk about anything. Right? No. Sex, don't have it. Not until you're married and only for kids. That's it. It's not for fun. So my parents never talked about sex at my house. And my dad and my mom kind of figured out that I was gay from very early on. I was a little fruitcake from very little. And it's okay. I was a cute fruitcake. So by the time I was about 8 or 9, my dad just didn't know what to do with me. And my parents only did like 1st, 2nd grade of school. And by the time I got to 4th grade, I was smarter than them. So my dad was like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, I have no idea. And he kind of knew that I was gay, so he didn't know how to communicate. So any conversations about sex. Now I say this because, and this is true for those of you white people and Asian who don't know about this, it's true. When you're about 15 and you're a boy, girls get quinceañeras, which are great. I always wanted a quinceañera. I was funny to dress. It was awesome. But boys, we get hookers. Yay, hookers. And you're like, what? No, yeah, we did. Lots of my cousins, when they were 15, they became men because their dads took them to hookers. They could lose their virginity. But I was gay, so my dad was like, where do I take you? What do I do with you? I had some ideas, but he wouldn't go with me. Almost puppy? So, raised Catholic was very conservative. Now, what that does, people are like, what does that have to do with your story? Well, because I'm HIV positive. I've been positive for 15 years now. I was actually diagnosed with AIDS, but it's always better to just say HIV. People grasp that better. Because if I came and I said, I have AIDS, we're like, oh, just keep your distance, because, whoa, that's kind of scary, right? But if I say I'm HIV positive, it's more acceptable right now. And then if you know your numbers, do y'all know the difference between HIV and AIDS? Anybody? Yeah, can you tell me?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, HIV or AIDS is like the advanced, like the more advanced form of HIV when like your immune system is really low and you get infected with things like get sick more easily.
Right.
Yeah, and HIV is like you can have HIV for like a really long time as long as you keep it under control with medicine.
Did you have another?
It's your range of T cell count.
Exactly. And those two answers go together. That's correct. Do you know the numbers?
No.
Okay. So yes, you know the numbers?
Like when your T cell is greater than 500.
Oh, that's a new number. Okay.
I think I was reading in my textbook the other day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of the official number is, and it varies depending on where you really look. It can go between 200 and 250 T cells. So anything under 200, 250, my number was 110. So I was considered AIDS from the beginning. And this is back in 2000. So if you're adding up, I'm 45 years old. You're like, what? You're so adorable. I know. I take care of myself. So all those tacos, they're good for you. True story. I just saw a video online that said tacos are better than fiber bars. Yes. So tacos every day for me. So when I was diagnosed in 2000, that was the number. It was 2,000. Anything under 2,000, you were considered AIDS. Anything over, you were considered HIV. My numbers were 110, therefore I was AIDS. So at the CDC Center, when I was diagnosed, there's a paper that says Daniel Garza, patient AIDS. Now, this is not true anymore. Did we say 2008 or something like that? Something before 2010, they changed the rules. So now if you're diagnosed with AIDS, you are no longer reported to the CDC. It's now anonymous. So people are still worried about that, but you're not reporting it anymore. So that's it. So yes, I'm HIV positive, 15 years. It happened sexually. I was a very sexually active young man. I have not been with a woman, but I lost my virginity to a man when I was about 13, 14 years old. But again, it goes back to the connection. My parents never talked to me about sex. They never talked about being protected. I mean, these, everybody knows, this in Catholic home, they don't exist. These are not real. These are make-believe things. So I didn't know how to take care of myself. My parents didn't know how to talk to me about having sex. Never mind gay sex. Like that just didn't happen. So I definitely had daddy issues because I sought out older men just to have affection and to get attention. And well, we were teenagers. I was a teenager. Sex was good. Right? Dudes, I'm dude anyway. But I wasn't clean and sober. I say that because there is a connection between being HIV positive and drugs and alcohol. Okay, this is where kind of the story starts. Back in 1990, there's a year called 1990. Some of you are like, I don't know that. Yes. Back in 1990, I was 20 years old. I lived in Dallas. I was young. I was adorable. Working in the office. And had a really cool Mustang too. And I worked in these cubicles, and the guy next to me, we're gonna make you Frank for a little while. So Frank had TB. Everybody know what TB is? Tuberculosis, right? Airborne. So everybody in the office had to go get tested. So I was like, and we were best friends. We hung out and stuff. So I go to the clinic. This is in Dallas. So I get to the clinic, and I'm gonna make you meet for a little bit because there's no kids over here. So I walk in, and the nurse is like, fill out paperwork. Back then, and you can still do it now, like you can give a fake name and then give you a card with a number, and they're like, your name? So I was so mad at my friend Frank, I'm like, 50 minutes. You can't throw him under the bus, and I'm like, 50 minutes, it was his fault. So they're like, all right, 50 minutes. Well, I'm gonna ask you some really personal questions, are you okay with them? I'm like, sure. So I'm thinking it's about TB, like, did I sit next to him? Did I eat anything? What was my relationship? And she's like, are you gay, bi, or straight? And I'm like, whoa. We don't talk about that stuff. Because we don't talk about that stuff. Like, no. So I'm like, and I was 20 years old. I was almost 20, and I was like, it's the first time that actually anybody would ask me, what's your sexuality? And I was like, well, gay. Okay. Have you ever had anal, vaginal, or oral sex? I'm like, what is it? Down. First of all, she wasn't my type, and dominating. And I'm like, whoa, like that's really like touchy. Like, I'm like, well, I've had oral and I've had anal. Like, I've had anal, I have like She starts asking more personal questions, like, have you been top or have you been bottom? Whoa, like this is really getting deep and sweating and like, hi Dios mío, like what's gonna happen? Like if he gets back to my mother, hi, dinner's gonna be awkward today about this. So at the end she goes, well, we're not just gonna do a TB test. Have anybody had a TB test before? Yeah, you know they put the little prick in it. They prick you and it's a little ronchita, it's a little circle. And depending on the size and the redness, if you're positive or not. Anyway, it was negative. We're also going to do an HIV test, and I'm like, wow. Now, right now, 2016, August 30th, I'm here talking to you about HIV and AIDS like nothing. You're like, oh, everybody talked about it like that. But no. Come back with me in time to 1990. 1990, AIDS was still kind of new. It was still fresh. It was like 6 years old, 5 years old. People were talking about it because people were dying. And in the gay community, we were really concerned. We were horrified that our friends were dying. So we wanted to support them. So we would have big, we had the pride parades. If anybody been to a pride parade? And did they still do that? I haven't been in years, but they used to do the rainbow flag. And you would throw money in there to support pride and to support HIV and AIDS. But the most of it was you wanted your friends to see you. You were supportive. And there comes a flag and you're all drunk. You're like, hey, we'll go like this. Or, because we were really cool and like, there's drag queens. If you've never been to a drag show, go see a drag show. We would have drag shows and they'd have these big buckets and you wanted your friends to see you, that you were supportive with the cause. You were united. So you would put a dollar in there when the drag scene came out and you had a beer and everything. But we didn't talk about it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Because, what's your name?
Brian.
Brian. Because sick friends and Brian and I started dating. And then Brian's friend had a friend whose friend got tested for HIV and he could be positive. Well, crap. Well, maybe because we're queer and everybody sleeps with everybody, Brian might be positive. So, ooh, no, now I don't want to go out with Brian. He's adorable, but I'm like, ah, he might be positive. My girlfriend's there, calm down, Brian. So we wouldn't talk about it. We'd be like, no. We'll support the cause, but we're not going to talk about it. Because if anybody thinks that I'm remotely this close to HIV, even being positive, it would be social suicide. It's like being defriended on Facebook. Now you get it, right? Oh, I get that. Totally bugged out. So we didn't talk about it. So all I knew in my head, because I didn't do research, because if you did research, people knew about it, was that HIV was AIDS, AIDS was death, and if my parents found out, they're going to kill me, and then they're going to kick me out of the house. So I'm not going to talk about it. So I get tested, and the lady goes, okay, well, we'll call you in a couple of weeks, and we'll give you results. I'm like, a couple of weeks? God, 2 weeks. Because now you guys go get tested, and it takes, what, 20 minutes? So you can watch an episode of The Big Bang Theory. Cool show, right?
Yeah.
30 minutes. In the time you see that show, you can get tested and get your results. See if you're HIV positive. Back then, 2 weeks, and this is before cell phones. You're like, what? Yeah, we didn't have cell phones. This is even before pagers. You're like, what's a pager? I had a pager when I was Chinese. This is before pagers. In fact, my parents were so cheap, we didn't have an answering machine, and we didn't have call waiting. It was just one line. You were home, you got it, you know? It's gone. So I just happened to be home, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and this is a landline. People are like, what's a landline? There's one right there. So I pick up the phone, and they're like, I'm Mr. Jimenez. I'm like, who? And I'm like, Mr. Jimenez, we're calling from the clinic. And I'm like, oh, that's me. Yeah, this is Mr. Jimenez. Like, well, we need you to come back to the clinic. Because if y'all know, if they call you back, it's never done. Because they don't call you in for a surprise party, and they're not waiting for you to give you some great news, or you won the lottery. It's always something harsh, right? Like, yeah. So I go into the clinic, and I sit down, and the nurse comes to me, she has all these little pamphlets. She's like, welcome back, Mr. Marshall. Two pamphlets, you want to read those while we wait? We'll be right back. And just hold on. We're going to run another test, but don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, whoa, this is not sound good. I was 20 years old. I wasn't stupid. I was like, oh. If I hear the words, you're positive, my life is over. So she walked out one door, and I said, I'm out of here. I walked out. I went home. I didn't want to know. Because if I heard the words, that was the end. So for the next 10 years, I spent myself getting drunk and getting high. So every relationship that I had, every sexual adventure that I had was involved alcohol and drugs. My first boyfriend that I lived with never knew until after we broke up that I was possibly positive. And that's where the connection lies. Well, what's the connection? It's because we live in such shame and denial and frustration and sadness that we need those things to make ourselves happy or to be in a relationship. Does that make sense? Trust me, I've been through a lot of therapy. I'm okay with it now. And people have asked me, do you think you infected anybody? I'm sure I did. Very good. I partied. I was drunk. I was high. So when that says don't do drugs, they make you do stupid things. Yeah. And when you wake up in the morning and go, what did I do? You're actually talking like, what did I do with you? Like, oh my God. So that happened many, many times. So don't do drugs. Not because they're bad for you, but because you don't know what you're doing and you don't ask the questions. And I didn't ask the questions. So I could possibly have not been HIV positive at that time. Very possibly, I could not have. Maybe it could have been something different. Maybe they could have tested me for, because I was anemic or something was off. But because I was so scared to get my results, I went off and got drunk and got high, and I possibly got infected after that. Does that make sense? So don't do drugs. And I'll be 10 years in June of next year, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm also an NO cancer. Yeah, you can clap. That's awesome.
He's so humble.
I'm also an NO cancer survivor. You're like, what does that have to do with it? That's what I thought. I went through cancer treatment last year. I was diagnosed in March of 2015. So there's a picture I'll show you. I was diagnosed in 2015 of anal cancer with treatment, radiation, and chemo. I had complications from radiation. I now have a colostomy bag. So if you hear that, I call him Tommy. Colostomy. I know it's not very bright. It's colostomy, Tommy. Get it? Yeah. I was on drugs at the hospital, and that's the first thing that came to my head. I did not know that there are we saw about 20 different cancers. There's about 20 different cancers associated with HIV. There doesn't have to be history in your family of cancer.
And this one in particular, you have a 28% greater chance of getting it.
Thank you. 28% chance more of getting anal cancer than any other cancer in HIV because of the HPV virus. HPV plus HIV plus just intercourse, anal sex, all contributes to anal cancer. So there's no history of cancer in my family. I was the first one. But I've always been an overachiever and a go-getter. So I was like, vamos por cancer. If you think, wow, that's a good attitude, no, it sucks. It really does suck. I hated it. I didn't want the colostomy, but it was for the better. So I'm good. So don't feel bad. I'm alive and I'm here to torture you guys. So that's a good thing. Are you questions so far? Everybody good? Am I boring you? This is me when I was diagnosed, and actually that date is January 2001. I've never changed it, but 2001 because I was diagnosed in 2000. These are some of the symptoms that I had. Now, one alone, if you read just one alone, and you're like, well, you have stomach infection. Anybody has stomach infection. Anybody can get a little stomach fever or whatever. But I started having night sweats. Now, mind you, when I got diagnosed in 2000, I was a crackhead, I was an alcoholic. My boyfriend at the time was the manager of a bar. Bad combination when you're an alcoholic. Because I got all my drinks for free. All the drug dealers were in the bar, so I got all my stuff for free. I partied all the time. I will admit this, people are like, don't you hate that? I had a good time. It was good, but don't do it. Don't do it. Thinking about something, don't do it. I used to have night sweats, not that, well, that's obvious because I'm drinking a lot, so I have to sweat the alcohol somehow. It's okay, night sweats are cool, I was okay. But I was losing a lot of weight, so I was like, I'm hot. I looked like that, and I thought I was hot. I was like, when I look, I'm like 29, jeans, I look hot, I was skinny, and this is in Houston. I was losing muscle and lots of energy, obvious, because I kept saying, obviously, because I'm drinking, and I'm partying all night, and I'm working all day, I'm not eating, of course I'm tired. It makes total sense. But then my hair started falling, and that's where I got scared. I'm pretty vain about my hair. This is new hair. This is all my cancer hair. I call it my cancer hair because it came up thicker and nicer. And we're dudes. We're still vain about our hair, right? So my hair started falling, so I would wear a cap to work, and I'd be like, nobody notices. But then I got bronchitis and I got tuberculosis, and I knew something was wrong. And until my boss looked at me, I worked at a restaurant, and this is a little footnote here. This is how powerful your minds are. And it gave me the first glimpse at saying I can do anything. I was serving tables. I was running around all night. But until my boss, until my boss came to me and said, you know what, Daniel, you look sick. Why don't you go home, take some time off. When you get better, come back. Until she told me, because again, this is 10 years later from 1990, right? Still, people are not looking at me. My friends, the guy that I was dating, nobody looked at me and said, hey, you look sick. Maybe you should get checked. Nobody did. She did and said, maybe you need to go home and get checked. Go to the hospital and see what's going on. Until she told me that I looked sick, I didn't believe I looked sick. I just thought I was hot. And it's funny because a high school student at Irvine High School told me that I looked like a poster child for Feed the Children Africa. Yeah, and I was like, oh, how rude. And then another kid told me that I looked like an illegal that just swam across the river. And I was like, how dare you, I would never get my hair wet in the river.
Good answer.
But nobody told me, so I ended up in the hospital and they found all that. And I was like, wow. So they finally ran an HIV test when I was in the hospital. and they tested me. And the first discrimination, or the first people that discriminated against me, or pushed me aside, was my own family. Because they didn't know. And even to date, there's less information in Spanish than there is in English. So I was excited when I found out that there's PrEP and PEP and PrEP information in English and Spanish, because I hadn't found any, and so we get some more. There wasn't that much information. And when I moved in with my family, I was living in Houston, and they moved me to South Texas. I had my own room, and I had my own dishes and towels and silverware, because they were scared and they didn't know how they would get infected. So I had nephews that with my sister, I was sharing kids. I wasn't allowed to hug them or touch them or be with them because they were afraid that they were getting infected. So soon after I started getting a little better, I started volunteering at a local organization there in South Texas. Anybody in Texas? Anybody from Texas? You from Texas? Where? Austin. Austin. I love Austin. So if you know Texas, down in the valley, McAllen, Brownsville, Harlingen. Okay, my sister lives in a little town called Mission, right next to McAllen. You sneeze it, you miss it. It's that small town. But they have the best apples. They didn't know, so there was an agency. It's not there anymore, but there was an agency, and I would go volunteer there, and I would get information in English and translate it to Spanish. Or they would let me order the brochures, and I would order as much Spanish stuff as I could, so I can get educated and tell my sister and my family about it. It took about 6 months for my sister to come around, and actually, because we used to have luncheons at the agency, and it took about 6 months for her to finally come and join us. But that was a big moment, because I knew that we'd open the door. And that was pretty cool for me. Everybody good so far? Mm-hmm. Shut me up if there's no dumb question. She already talked about medications a little bit, because I want to leave time for questions if you have any questions. These are some of the basic. Actually, it's kind of changed. I need to change it. I was lazy this summer. I didn't really do anything. But I was going to update my PowerPoint. But this is a basic cocktail up here. That's changed for me, because Truvada is considered one of the one and all pills. Truvada is also one of the PrEP pills. So, does anybody know what PrEP is? Basically, it's. Can you give a better explanation of what PrEP is?
Oh, so PrEP is an antiviral that you take for somebody who's HIV negative, who engages in high-risk acts such as gay sex and that sort of thing. And so this is a pill that they can take every day to prevent HIV transmission if they're engaging in high-risk.
Yeah. So, in our situation, Christian, my boyfriend, he's negative, non-positive. So he would be taking the pill, not me. Right now, because we're still recuperating from, there's no sexual but we did at one point. Damn you! Don't judge me. But all these prices and stuff you can find on. Actually, this is from Walmart website. I don't get them at Walmart, but you can. The reason I put this on there is because it's not just about treating HIV. After 15 years of medication, I need antacids because my stomach is always in reflux. Plus, the salsa doesn't help either. But I have to, even when I don't, I have to just be careful because I get a lot of acid reflux. Vitamins, I take prenatal vitamins because they have more stuff in them than just regular over-the-counter stuff. So I get prenatal, but I'm not pregnant yet, so we're good. Over the years, I've developed high blood pressure, heart problems, and cholesterol problems. Although there's some indications in my family, they're not at the levels that I had it. So even when I've had a really good diet, my cholesterol is still off the charts. So I'm like, screw it, I'm still gonna eat my tacos, it's not gonna help. So I have to be on medication all the time. And because of the TB medication causes damage to your cartilages. So normally a regimen is 9 months. I had complications, so I was on it for 14 months. So it really damaged my cartilages. Plus, chemo also damages your cartilage. So between those two, I'm basically screwed. I'm put together with gum and duct tape right now. And that's a joke, I'm not. Any questions on that?
Oh.
Yes?
Is it subsidized? Any of it?
Yes. There's a program called the Ryan White Actually, we have AIDS Drug Resistance Program, ADAP, and they pay for most of my medications. And then I'm also on Medicare and Medicaid, and they pay for most of it. I think I pay like $20 a year for my medications, so they pay most of it. That doesn't happen in all states. California is a no wait list program, so if you're HIV positive and you go on medication today, there's some services that will help you. Florida is still on a wait list. So Florida, if you are diagnosed positive today, you go on the wait list, and it doesn't guarantee that you go on medications immediately. Although we're working on every state, yeah, on the wait list. But there's still some states. But yeah, my insurance is paid for everything. These are the HIV-related cancers. I'll just leave that up for a second. And mostly is to show you the picture. This was me about a year ago. This was about June of last year. As you can see, no hair, but I had a cap on. For about a week there, I couldn't really walk anymore. I was really weak. I went down to 123 pounds. I'm about 160 right now. I get even number. You can tell I was not very coordinated. Chanclas with socks, really? That was the week they revoked my gay card. They're like, no more for you. This is my info. I'm not your typical HIV cancer survivor, colostomy carrying kind of guy. I do a lot of stuff, but not everybody does. We talked about a little bit about support systems and depression and shame and secrets. There's still a secrecy in HIV. There's still a lot of shame with people who are HIV positive. I have a blog. I have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I used to host 3 shows. Now I only host this one. Put it together. It's a podcast, and I talk about everything. But if you want information on HIV, I did about 25 shows on HIV, and you get to go with me to my doctor's appointment, therapy session, talk with my pharmacist. It's really intimate conversations, and you can listen to those. Those are still on archives. And then for those of you who speak Spanish or have family who speak Spanish, I did Corazón en la Mano, and on this show, one of my favorite shows that I did was my sister, who I lived with when I got sick. When I was recording one day and I said, I don't have a topic, she's like, I want to be on your show. I'm like, what do you want to talk about? She goes, nobody's ever asked me how I felt when I found out that you were positive. I was like, oh, and I was like, it really got to me. So we did a show called Mi Hermano Tiene SIDA. My brother has AIDS. And it's mostly about interviewing her and how she felt. It's a really, not because it's us, but I think it was a really cool 1-hour conversation with my sister. So if you speak Spanish, check it out. It's on archives. And you can find it at momententertainment.com. I always give my email because I know sometimes you don't want to ask questions in public. But if you have any questions, or if you want me to come talk to you privately, or you just think I'm adorable and want my email, then by all means, I take stalkers. Please feel free to do. Just don't come. When you come to my house, bring tacos or don't come at all. Carnita. This is my address. Everybody got carnita tacos. We have a party. Yeah, it's a party. I'll leave you with this, just my part, if you have any questions. It's not easy. It's hard. 15 years, I know people who've been positive for 30 years, and they're just equally active. It's not easy because there's so much that comes with it. My mood swings. Sometimes I'm tired. I didn't want cancer. Trust me, we had a plan. It was not part of the plan, but it made our relationship even stronger. The colostomy, I literally carry a bag of poop with me almost everywhere I go. Nobody wants that. But people don't associate it with HIV, but it's all connected. So when I come and tell you, or Beth tells you, take care of yourself, don't get infected. It's not just because, oh yeah, there's medication, you can be good. You can look like this too. But it's all the baggage that comes with it. And he's here, I'm not gonna lie to you, I still get depressed, I still get sad, I still get mad. 15 years later and many hours of therapy, there are still nights when I wake up and I'm like, why all this? Because I didn't have the information, and it goes back to the first thing I told you about, because my family didn't talk about it, we weren't open about it. So, not because it's me, it could be anybody standing here. You know what, this is important, and you guys need to know. Let's face it, you're college students. Not all of you, and I'm not judging you. But if you are active, if you're having fun everything that you're talking about. It's what I did, but be safe. Don't be dumb. Let me be this for you. And I know it sounds very martyr and like, ay, Dios mío, I'll fight for you. But I'm serious. I have 15 years experience. Let me handle the HIV. You find a cure. You go change the world. You do something amazing and then tell me about it. And I'll be there waiting for you to tell me about it. But let me handle HIV. Cool? And you guys handle the rest. Any questions? Yeah, you can clap for me.